Hey guys, it's Gnomes. So today I decided I was going to draw a female character and kind of just doodle and get back into uh, drawing and like creating a finished piece again. So first out, I sketched out kind of the shape of the head and where I wanted the facial features and the shape of them to go. Um, I really just wanted to kind of create a character that was kind of punky but still very like feminine and soft. So I tried to round out and sharpen lots of facial features. So like her eyebrows are round and her face is round but also sharp, like her jaw. I gave her this short haircut, which I thought would be really cute for her, and a side profile, which kind of gives her a bit more personality than if I was to draw her head on. Um, I then I go in and define some of the lines I like a little bit more and fix some of the shapes that I don't like or the places that I don't really like where they are. Um, yeah, and I gave her a bunch of earrings because I thought that'd be really cute with the short hair and the face. And yeah, and then I keep going back in and uh, defining features and adding more and more detail to the things I kind of laid in and figuring out how I want kind of the final piece to look like. I drew in this like background shape that almost looks like a flame or like a teardrop because I figured the page was kind of like it didn't have a good flow to it and it was kind of just stationary and kind of plain. So I added this like tear shape into it, and then when I was happy with the way that shape came out, I went back and continued with like some specific facial features that I thought would look nice. Yeah, and just really defining that like solid foreground or base layer so that I would have a good. Oh, there's my cat. He kept walking over my page when I was drawing. Yeah, just like a solid base layer to put down before I add like fine liners and alcohol markers. And then I start lining. Um, and I start with a thicker liner because if I start with a thinner one, I don't get any line weight variation. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's a brush liner or not, but it's a micron. And then I forgot to lighten my sketch, so I went back in and did that with a kneaded eraser. And then I went and started lining. And I started with the ears and the earrings because I thought they were really cute and I liked them a lot. And just drawing that shape is really fun. And then the jaw and the hair. And I figured that if I started with a thicker liner, that I would get some better line weight variation, and I can make pretty thick lines. And because the page size is so large, I can use a thicker liner and have it look still not too chunky, if that makes sense. And I go into the details that I want to be darkest with the thickest liner, like the eyelash wing thing that I do. And most of the like exterior lines so that she is a solidified character. Wow, I have a weird lining workflow. I just kind of bounce back from one place to another where I think that there should be thicker lines. Yeah, if I wish I could change the nose a little bit so that it's not just so rectangular, but it's kind of cute, almost like stylized. Not my style necessarily, but I guess if I drew it, it has to be somewhat. I gave her like this pouty little lip, which I don't know, gives her a little bit more personality. It's a little bit sassy. And yeah. I'm just going back in and checking to make sure I didn't miss any details. And then I line that like flame shape is what I'm gonna call it, I guess. And I wanted it to be fairly thick, so I went back in, and then I added some texture so it wasn't so boring, or so that there was more life to it, and it seemed more like oh, there's my cat again. So there was some moving motion to the flame, and then I go back and thicken some of the lines even more because they start looking a little bit thin, and she starts just blending in, and I want her to stand out and be more of the focus, almost like she's coming like out of this, like it's magic or something. Yeah. And then I try and add some like tattoo to her arm because it's looking a little bit plain. So I start sketching in kind of like a flame shape so that it alludes to the background, and then my cat again walks over and wants to see what we're doing. So yeah. And then I add some liners to that. I try and use thinner liners so that it looks more just like line work in a tattoo and less detailed and like a fully rendered drawing. I'm not sure if I am happy with that, how the tattoo turned out, but I don't do a lot of them, so I was just kind of testing how I wanted things to be. And then I start lining the eyes and some of the smaller details that I wanted in there to be rendered with liner. So like some of the hair strokes that I thought I needed, and just some like shading and some more movement in that flame in the back so that it's got some line weight variation and some just different textures in it. And then I added a little bit more to the hair, and then I moved on to coloring. And so I picked kind of a color palette, and I didn't test to make sure all my colors worked prior. A couple of them are dead, so I had to switch partway through. And so I picked a color for her skin, and I was just kind of testing to see how I wanted to color this tattoo in, and I decided to just color, I guess I colored the skin first. I colored all her arm and her chest and her face with this one color, and I used the chisel nib more than I probably should, because I just like getting a large area down, especially with the lighter colors. And then I use a thinner nib for the fine nib for smaller details closer to line art and like smaller areas. And then I darkened the wing liner because after I had erased it, it had gotten quite a bit lighter. Then I was trying to pick a color. I think at this point I was really trying to pick the color scheme. I was trying to decide if I wanted her hair to be green or purple, and I went with purple just because I thought that would look really cute. So I went in first with some pink, and then I added this light purple, like a mauve lavender. I wouldn't even say lavender. I don't know. This kind of like light purple color to it to try and blend out that pink a little bit, which the two didn't blend very well, which is fine. I just figured it looked more like hair strokes, and I wanted the hair to be darker purple anyway, so I went back in with a darker purple to add some shadows and start like building my confidence and putting some more color down. And then I blended that out with a lighter purple again, darkening it all up, and then I went in added more dark till I was happy with that, like the color and the level of darkness that it was. And not always blending it out so that it looks almost like hair strokes sticking up and going down, so I purposefully made some look a little more noticeable than others, rather than blending them out entirely. And then I added some more dark down by the root because that's where it would be darker, based off of like shadow and stuff. And I used that pink spot more as highlight and less as just like just a flat pink. And then I'm trying to blend it out, and I go into the eyebrows with the same purple because I don't know, most people don't color their eyebrows the same color as their hair when it's purple, but I don't know, it's pretty like magical picture, so I figured she could have purple eyebrows if she has purple hair, and I think it looks really cute, so I did it. And then I went back in and tried to fix the hair again, and the eyebrow detailing. Yeah. And then her hairline, I think I brought it down a little bit lower than I wanted to initially, but it eventually I think I fixed it a bit with some shadow underneath so it looks better. I think I was just trying to make it look less like a flat piece of hair and more like it was coming out of her head, even though this is a fairly like cartoon or cartoon style. And then I go back in to try and figure out how I'm going to do this tattoo because I don't really draw tattoos very often. And so I add some like skin tone, and then I decide I'm going to put it off a bit, and I start with the face, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll use that pink I used in the hair. But it didn't blend very well, so I wasn't too happy with that pink. So I come back in later, I think, and I fix it with like a more blush tone. And then I give her some like really dark red lips. Just like, well, I don't know, dark, but like vibrant lipstick, and I thought that was really cute with the purple hair and just the tattoo and everything, and she just seems like a really cool person. I go back in with a darker one to create some dimension and some different tones, which I think it looks really good. She looks like she's just got a pouty full-lipped smile or smirk. And then I go, what am I doing? I'm just as clueless. And the recording cut out. Okay, well, then after the lips, I'm just trying to decide how I'm going to color her shirt, and I pick up a purple, and I decide to do her straps that color. And my camera had cut out at that point as well. So yeah, and then I start coloring the shirt this pink color, which initially I liked, and then I didn't really like it after I had stepped back and look at it a little bit, because I thought it was really bright, and so I tried to like tone it down a bit with that like mauve purple color, to just add a little bit more unity to the outfit, so that it was just a little bit less random having just a bright pink shirt, a really saturated bright pink. And then I tried to make it so that she had one sleeve and one like strap, which I thought would be cute. And then I start trying to tackle this tattoo. And then so I line it with this orange, and then I cover the whole thing with this skin tone that I had used. And then I go back in with a dark red to try and make the darker lines of the line art stand out a little bit more, and then I go back in with the orange a little bit just to blend the two together, and then I had just kind of left it at that point. I think it looks okay for one of my first attempts at doing tattoos on a character. I think it looks okay. And then I had started this background, and I go in with this wine red, which I think looks beautiful. The color is just so nice and rich. And I feather that so that the background is it's dark, and I can blend more colors in. So then I go in with a lighter pink, and I try and blend the colors together, and they do blend fairly nicely. In some spots it's a little bit streaky, but I just use that as some of this like movement that's created by this flame in the background, and so it's a little bit like whimsical and magical, you know. And then I tried with to put them, I was trying to figure out what color to put in the middle or to just leave it white, and I was going to add a purple, and I didn't like the way that was looking, so I went in with this bubblegum pink. And the initial pink I picked up was dead, so I went back and found another one that was better. And just was looking for the pink, I guess. Yeah, and there it is. It's this like warm pink, and I think that that just brings a little bit of warmth and like life to the center of this flame, and so I really like that choice. I think that was a good one. So I start outlining and filling it in and trying to blend all the colors together again. And then I think I go back and purposefully add some like movement texture-y things to this flame so that it's not completely solid and unified. So a little bit of streaks and just some overall, just following the flow of how I had set up this flame shape, which looks really good. I'm pretty happy with that choice. And trying to leave the center lighter still so that it all the focus was in the middle. And then I think I go into the eyes. Yes. So the eyes, I was trying to decide what color to do, and I was trying to figure out what color would be too saturated. So initially I'd wanted them to be green, and I thought that that would be just a little bit too bright and too loud because of the different like color families. So I went in with this like piercing icy blue, and I really like the way that looks. It gives this gives across the emotion I was really trying to portray, and just the vibe from this character that I really wanted. Then I added some blush to the cheeks to try and blend out that the pink that I had added before that didn't really blend out. And I added some to the shoulders so that it looked like she had been a little bit sun-kissed and outside. And then I had colored in the earrings so that they would look silver in the end, and I start going into some of the shadows, so I color the eyes. I color them gray so that they're not just completely white, so that they look a little bit more two-dimensional, and I try and make her lips look rounder by adding a little bit more gray. And then I go into some details with this various grays so that it doesn't become too oversaturated, but instead just darker versions of the same color, which I like quite a bit. And and then I try and add some colors to some grays to underneath the chin and around the ear and underneath the hairline, so that it looks like no less light is being casted there, so that her face pops forward and doesn't just sink back into her neck. It also like gives a bit of dimension so that she's not just this flat thing, which I really like doing. That chin shadow is my favorite. I think it just pushes a character's face so far forward so fast. And then I'm trying to add shadows in the place I feel necessary. Then I go into the background with this gray color. I do this a lot with my drawings because it separates the character and all the saturated color from the background, so it's not just white. And I really like doing it, but because I really like doing it, the marker that I was using, the one I picked up because it was similar to the colors in the piece, like it was I think a blue gray or a cool gray, I can't remember. But it was dying, so the background ends up being really streaky. So had I known that, I probably wouldn't have done the background. But at this point, I was a little bit frustrated, but I also was a little bit too far in to just not, to decide not to do the background or like to have to it. So I stuck with it, and I tried to make it as little, like as flat as possible, less streaky, but it wasn't completely working. So I am just like trying to power through it really fast and get done with it so that I don't have to stare at it anymore. The longer I look at it, I was really mad at it initially, but now it just kind of looks, I don't know, because the character is really smooth and everything in that is smooth. I don't hate the background being that way. I ended up going over right now with a lighter gray that had quite a bit more ink in it, and going over the whole thing, trying to get it a little bit less streaky, and it helped quite a bit. It's still pretty streaky, and that's okay. You live and you learn, I guess. Yeah, so at this point, I get to add highlight. Highlight is my favorite. Oh my gosh, that like little bit of white when you just, and it just looks good. Ooh. So I start with this thin highlighter. I don't even know what kind of pen it is. It's probably a paint pen of some kind, but the ink doesn't come out very opaque. So I start adding some highlights where I want them to, and when they're too strong, I use my finger to blot them out a little bit so that it's not so strong, and I start to outline, yeah, that's the word, outline the flame shape in this white so that it pops from the background. But the white that I was using wasn't fancying, or I wasn't fancying it so much, so I go back in with this paint pen because it's so much more opaque, and I go into some of the whites that I wanted brighter, which is all of them, because white highlights, oh my gosh, I should probably simmer down with them, but they're so nice. And then I try and add a little bit of movement to that flame again, just because I thought it would look cool. And I go in with a pink Posca pen as well, to kind of unify all of the different areas. And then I underline her a little bit so it looks like she's coming out of the flame a little bit more. And then I think with that, I was done. So I signed it, and I finished. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any tips or tricks, please let me know. I would love to hear that from you. My Instagram will be linked in the description. Have a great day. Thank you.